Discussions regarding the strategic future of the Arctic have quietly returned to the forefront of geopolitical analysis, specifically centering on the relationship between the United States and Greenland. While the concept of a purchase was widely publicized during the previous administration in 2019, recent reports suggest that the underlying strategic rationale has remained a topic of serious debate within policy circles. Observers have noted that what was once treated as a diplomatic curiosity is now being viewed through the lens of resource security and great power competition in the North Atlantic. A specific procedural element drawing attention is the existing legal framework governing the U.S. military presence at Thule Air Base. The 1951 Defense of Greenland Agreement established a precedent for U.S. involvement in the territory's security, a detail that legal analysts argue provides a foundational, albeit limited, structure for expanded cooperation. This institutional history suggests that current discussions may not be about a transaction in the traditional real estate sense, but rather a significant shift in sovereign influence within the Kingdom of Denmark. The uncertainty currently facing diplomatic channels revolves around how such overtures would be formally structured. According to international relations experts, the focus has shifted from the feasibility of a purchase to the diplomatic mechanics of increased American integration in the region. This raises an unresolved question regarding how the autonomous government of Greenland, distinct from Copenhagen, would navigate direct engagement with Washington. As these strategic calculations are weighed, the primary tension lies in balancing historical alliances with the urgent demands of Arctic security. Following the initial reports of U.S. interest in purchasing Greenland, the diplomatic response from relevant parties was swift and direct. The government of Greenland issued a formal statement clarifying that while they are open for business, the territory itself is not for sale. This distinction highlights the unique semi-autonomous status of Greenland within the Kingdom of Denmark, a relationship governed by the Home Rule and Self-Government Acts, which dictate the authority of Greenlanders over their resources and territory. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen subsequently characterized the discussion of a land purchase as absurd, emphasizing the position that Greenland belongs to Greenland, not Denmark. This statement underscored the complexities of modern sovereignty and the shift away from colonial-era territorial transactions. The exchange moved rapidly from a reported internal discussion in the White House to a public diplomatic dialogue involving heads of state, drawing international observer attention to the constitutional structure of the Danish realm. Analysts point to the strategic importance of the Arctic region as a primary driver for historical and current American interest. Thule Air Base, the United States' northernmost military installation, has long cemented the security partnership between the U.S. and Denmark, serving a critical role in missile early warning and space surveillance. It is noted that this is not the first time the concept has been raised. In 1946, the Truman administration explored a similar proposal, indicating the island's enduring geopolitical value for North Atlantic security. Beyond military considerations, the region holds significant potential for rare earth mineral mining, a sector currently subject to intense competition among global powers. As Arctic ice melt opens new shipping lanes and resource areas, control and influence over Greenland have increasingly become focal points in discussions regarding long-term resource security. Trade experts are watching to see if the territorial interest shifts toward economic agreements or direct investment instead. The situation escalated procedurally when President Trump postponed a scheduled state visit to Copenhagen. The cancellation, announced via social media, cited the Prime Minister's unwillingness to discuss the purchase as the primary reason. This move broke with standard diplomatic protocol, where state visits are typically planned months in advance and rarely canceled over specific policy disagreements, raising questions about the stability of bilateral diplomatic engagements. As the immediate diplomatic dust settles, the focus turns to the resilience of the U.S.-Denmark alliance amidst new Arctic challenges. The core question remains how the strategic necessity of cooperation in the North Atlantic will survive the temporary diplomatic friction. Diplomats on both sides are now tasked with navigating the procedural aftermath of the canceled visit and maintaining the operational status of joint defense initiatives. Following the initial reports, the diplomatic exchange between Washington and Copenhagen became the focal point of analysis. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen characterized the discussion of a sale as absurd, a term that drew a direct response from the White House. This rhetorical friction highlighted a clash between traditional diplomatic protocols and a transactional approach to international relations, leading to the abrupt cancellation of a planned state visit to Denmark. Beneath the headlines, security analysts began examining the strategic logic driving the interest in the territory. The Arctic region has increasingly become a theater for great power competition, with Russia expanding military capabilities and China declaring itself a near-Arctic state. For the United States, Greenland represents a critical geographical buffer and a potential hub for monitoring North Atlantic activity, raising questions about how American influence can be expanded without sovereignty. The conversation also shed light on the economic dimension, specifically regarding rare earth minerals found in Greenland's receding ice sheet. These resources are vital for modern technology and defense systems, sectors where the United States seeks to reduce reliance on foreign supply chains. Observers noted that while the method of acquisition was unconventional, the underlying objective of securing resource access aligns with long-standing national security priorities. Institutional responses followed the diplomatic dust-up, with the State Department moving to establish a physical diplomatic presence in Nuuk. The re-establishment of a consulate for the first time in decades signaled a shift toward formalized long-term engagement rather than outright acquisition. This move allowed for direct dialogue with the Greenlandic government regarding economic development and education, bypassing the friction associated with purchase offers. Legal experts pointed out the constitutional complexities involving the Kingdom of Denmark. Under the 2009 Act on Greenland Self-Government, the island holds significant autonomy, yet foreign affairs and defense remain under Danish purview. This legal framework suggests that any change in status would require a tripartite consensus, making a bilateral deal between Washington and Copenhagen legally effectively impossible without the explicit consent of the Greenlandic people. As the geopolitical landscape in the Arctic continues to evolve, the core issue of how the United States projects power in the high north remains an open file. The incident demonstrated the challenges of applying real estate principles to sovereign territories in the 21st century. Analysts are now watching to see if future U.S. administrations will pursue similar strategic goals through traditional alliances or return to more direct transactional proposals. As the diplomatic dust settles regarding the initial headlines over the potential purchase of Greenland, the event has catalyzed a significant reassessment of American strategic interests in the high north. The immediate aftermath saw a pivot from transactional rhetoric to tangible diplomatic infrastructure. A key development following the controversy was the reestablishment of a U.S. consulate in Nuuk, Greenland's capital, after decades of absence. This move institutionalized a direct line of communication between Washington and the semi-autonomous territory, representing a shift toward soft power diplomacy focused on economic aid packages and cooperation in education and tourism sectors rather than territorial acquisition. Analysts point to the broader geopolitical context driving this engagement, the warming Arctic. As ice recedes, new shipping lanes and vast mineral deposits, specifically rare earth elements essential for technology, are becoming accessible. Security experts note that maintaining a foothold in this region is viewed as critical to countering influence from other global powers who have also signaled interest in Arctic development. For the Kingdom of Denmark, this renewed American focus presents a complex diplomatic equation. Copenhagen handles foreign affairs and defense for Greenland, yet the local government in Nuuk retains authority over domestic issues and resource management. The dynamic requires balancing alliance commitments to the United States with the political autonomy and economic aspirations of the Greenlandic people. Looking ahead, the central open question remains the sustainability of this engagement strategy. It is unclear how future administrations will prioritize Arctic policy or whether the momentum generated by the initial high-profile proposal will translate into long-term investment. Ultimately, the interaction between the Trump administration and Greenland illustrates the evolving nature of Arctic geopolitics. What began as an unconventional proposal has underscored the region's transition from a peripheral concern to a central stage for international strategy. Observers continue to monitor how traditional alliances adapt to these shifting geographic and economic realities.